Tensions in the Indo-Pacific are continuing to rise after China dispatched a large flotilla of government vessels, including its largest maritime patrol ship, to waters east of Taiwan. The move comes in direct response to newly announced maritime boundary negotiations between Japan and the Philippines, a development that Beijing strongly opposes. According to Chinese state media, the deployment represents a major maritime law enforcement operation aimed at protecting what Beijing considers its territorial sovereignty and maritime rights. However, regional observers see the move as another sign of growing strategic competition in the Western Pacific, particularly as China faces increasing cooperation among US allies and partners. At the center of the operation is the Haixun 09, China's first 10,000-ton maritime patrol vessel and the largest ship of its kind in the country. The vessel is accompanied by several other large government ships, including the 7,500-ton hydrographic survey vessel Haixun 08, the ocean rescue ship Haixun 06, and the salvage vessel Donghaiju 113. Together, these ships form one of the most significant maritime enforcement flotillas China has deployed in the waters east of Taiwan. Chinese state news agency Xinhua described the patrol as a necessary response to what it called the unilateral actions of Japan and the Philippines. According to Beijing, the two countries' decision to begin negotiations over maritime boundaries east of Taiwan violates China's sovereignty claims and maritime interests. The patrol is also intended to strengthen China's deep-sea law enforcement capabilities and enhance its ability to control maritime traffic in strategically important waters. Reports from Chinese maritime monitoring groups indicate that the mission could mark the first time Chinese maritime authorities and the Chinese Coast Guard have conducted a coordinated patrol in Taiwan's Eastern Exclusive Economic Zone. The operation follows an earlier Coast Guard deployment that began just days before the arrival of the larger flotilla. Tracking data suggests Chinese vessels have maintained a continuous presence in the area for more than a week. The dispute centers on maritime boundary negotiations announced by Japan and the Philippines late last month. The two countries stated that they would begin formal discussions aimed at defining the boundaries of their exclusive economic zones and continental shelves in waters that potentially overlap with areas claimed by Taiwan. Although neither Tokyo nor Manila recognizes Taiwan as an independent state, Beijing reacted strongly to the announcement. Chinese officials declared the negotiations illegal and invalid, arguing that any discussions involving maritime areas connected to Taiwan directly affect Chinese sovereignty. For Beijing, the issue extends far beyond maritime boundaries. China considers Taiwan to be part of its territory and has repeatedly stated that reunification remains a national objective. As a result, any international action involving waters around Taiwan is viewed through the lens of sovereignty and national security. Analysts say the Japanese-Philippine negotiations may have triggered a particularly strong response because they are occurring at a time when both countries are rapidly strengthening their security relationships. Japan and the Philippines, both long-standing treaty allies of the United States, have expanded military cooperation over the past several years. That cooperation has accelerated even further as regional concerns grow over China's increasing military activities in the East China Sea, South China Sea, and around Taiwan. During a recent visit to Japan by Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., both governments agreed to begin formal negotiations on military intelligence sharing. The two countries also announced plans to accelerate the transfer of 6 retired Japanese Abu Kuma-class destroyers to the Philippine Navy, a move that would significantly improve Manila's maritime capabilities. Military cooperation has expanded beyond equipment transfers. During the annual Balikatan military exercises conducted by the United States and the Philippines earlier this year, Japanese troops participated on Philippine territory for the first time since World War II. The development was widely viewed as a symbol of growing trilateral cooperation among Japan, the Philippines, and the United States. From Beijing's perspective, these developments are deeply concerning. China has long viewed the so-called First Island Chain as a critical strategic barrier limiting its access to the Pacific Ocean. The chain stretches from Japan through Taiwan and down toward the Philippines, creating a geographic line that Chinese military planners believe could be used to contain China's naval forces during a future conflict. As Japan and the Philippines strengthen their military ties, Chinese leaders fear that both countries could coordinate efforts to restrict Chinese access to key maritime routes, particularly in a crisis involving Taiwan. These concerns were reflected in a strongly worded commentary published by the People's Daily, the official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. The article accused Japan and the Philippines of creating instability in the Asia-Pacific region and pursuing what it described as Cold War-style bloc politics. According to the commentary, the growing cooperation between Tokyo and Manila threatens regional peace and increases the risk of confrontation. The article was published under the pen name Zhong Sheng, a name frequently used to communicate Beijing's official foreign policy views. The commentary was especially critical of the Philippines. It accused Manila of using Japanese support to pursue maritime claims that China considers illegitimate. The article further alleged that Philippine leaders were attempting to inflame regional tensions to distract from domestic political challenges. Beijing also issued a warning that the Philippines should avoid becoming overly dependent on foreign powers for security support. The commentary argued that aligning too closely with outside partners could place the country in a dangerous position during future regional conflicts. Japan was not spared from criticism either. The article urged Tokyo to exercise caution in both its words and actions, reflecting growing tensions between China and Japan. Relations between the two countries have deteriorated significantly in recent years. The situation became even more strained after Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi stated last year that a military attack on Taiwan could potentially trigger a Japanese response. Such statements have fueled Chinese concerns that Japan may become directly involved in any future Taiwan-related crisis. Meanwhile, China and the Philippines continue to clash over competing territorial claims in the South China Sea. Confrontations between Coast Guard vessels from both countries have become increasingly frequent, raising fears that a minor incident could escalate into a larger diplomatic or military crisis. Against this backdrop, China's latest deployment east of Taiwan serves multiple purposes. It demonstrates Beijing's opposition to the maritime boundary negotiations, reinforces Chinese claims regarding Taiwan, and sends a signal to neighbouring countries that China remains prepared to defend what it considers its national interests. At the same time, the operation highlights the growing strategic competition unfolding across the Indo-Pacific. As regional powers expand military cooperation and China responds with larger and more visible maritime deployments, the waters surrounding Taiwan are becoming increasingly crowded and contested. The deployment of China's largest patrol vessel is more than just a maritime law enforcement mission. It is a clear message that Beijing is closely monitoring every development involving Taiwan and is prepared to respond whenever it believes its interests are being challenged. With Japan, the Philippines, China, and the United States all increasing their activities in the region, the coming months could prove critical for the future security environment of the Western Pacific. For now, the massive Chinese flotilla operating east of Taiwan stands as the latest reminder that competition over territory, maritime rights, and regional influence continues to intensify across one of the world's most strategically important regions.